Halo, Legendary, all skulls on. Name a better trio. I'll wait. Since their introduction in Halo 2, skulls have been a great way to turn a fun, legendary Halo playthrough into a jaw-clenching, controller-throwing, rage-fueled gaming session. Suffice to say, I've always hated LASO runs, and I've never finished one before. So when a commenter on my zero-shot legendary run questioned my Halo mastery, well, I just had to step up to the challenge. Against my better judgment, I decided Halo Infinite would be the first Halo game I beat on LASO. But not only that, I would do it without shooting once. This means no Fisher-Price Scorpion gun to cheese every fight, and no speedrun glitches like my last video. We're doing this whole game the old-fashioned way. Every mission, baby. Meaning I'll be using fists, swords, explosives, anything except shooting, which in a LASO run is going to make it next to impossible. Nevertheless, I found the skulls in a separate playthrough, put them all on, took a long hard look at myself in the mirror, then began. I woke up, looked in 4 directions, so far so good. Once inside the banished ship, I wondered why I couldn't see my guns or HUD for about 3 seconds. Then I remembered that one of the skulls turns us all off. First enemy is spotted and deaded, nailing it. I remembered about the bandana skull giving infinite grenades, and without any better ideas, it was full on COD World at War in here, and I spammed grenades endlessly. It's a legit tactic, I promise. Despite my pro gamer skills, I died. About 14 times in total in the first grunt encounter. Partly because the mythic skull gives enemies more health, and partly because of the black eye skull, which only ever allows you to recharge your shield if you melee an enemy. So every hit counts on LASO, you're only going to get weaker the more you dilly-dally. I got past and met my first brute, and died. Fights in LASO are already so much different to any other Halo experience. You have no HUD, enemies are so much stronger, they're more aggressive, throw more grenades, which do more damage, and your shields will never recharge themselves unless you somehow punch one of these uber banished that have been hiding for the entire war. You may also notice that all the brutes have rocket launchers. So yeah, I guess I gotta deal with that too. Thanks to the Thunderstorm skull, all enemies are upgraded to their stronger unit. So grunts are all the shielded silver kinds, most brutes are shielded rocket ones, and most elites are the white sword wielding ones. I think now is a good time to mention, again, that I'm doing this without shooting. And that's where my new strategy to deal with enemy encounters comes in. It turns out, you can just skip them. This works really well. Obviously, some fights are unavoidable, like the Gabrakan Bridge, so this becomes a kind of cat and mouse game where you have to hit some Hail Mary stickies, isolate some enemies, and beat them down till they don't get back opposite of down again. I read online about another quirk of LASO. You don't get checkpoints often. This isn't the effect of a skull directly, but indirectly. Infinite won't give you a checkpoint if you don't have full shield. Because of Black Eye, your shield won't ever be full unless you melee an enemy and escape without getting hit. This doesn't happen often, unless you can punch a lone enemy and kill them. Because of the blind skull removing the HUD, you also don't know when you get a checkpoint. So when you die, after making some progress, you have no idea if you'll start 15 minutes back, or near where you die. Sounds like fun, right? No. Rhetorical questions aside, I realised how annoying the Boom Skull and Cowboy Skulls are, because they fling enemies around the room, putting them out of reach and letting them snipe you. After an hour or so, I cleared the room and the rest of the level was just running and platforming. Door, space, title screen. Level 2, let's go. The first elite owned me, naturally. I realised because he's an ultra, he'd pull a sword when you get close. This being a melee only run, I wanted that more than my parents to be proud of me. I killed it, but at the same time flung it off the map, so reloaded the checkpoint. Shock grenades, it turns out, are amazing because they stun your enemies, meaning you can get some hits in with relative safety. Sword acquired. The bandana skull also gives weapons, including the sword, infinite ammo. So, with a never-ending sword and grenades, getting through this level wasn't too bad. And when things got a bit hard, I could just skip some enemies. Which is super useful in these big set-piece rooms, because you can grapple underneath the platforms and Spider-Man your way across. A combination of grapples, sword swinging, and grenades got me to the first boss, which has given me a massive headache in my no-shot legendary run before. It's time for some payback, and this time, it's personal. It turns out, much easier with a bladed weapon. Clearing the landing pad was quite hard, with there not being really anywhere to hide, but the shock grenades and a few strafing sword runs did the trick. This is usually the part of these videos where you grab the Scorpion gun, so I teabagged it instead, and left it behind. What I really want is the Duelist Energy Sword. This swings faster than a normal sword, so until I can get the Bloodblade, it's going to be my main weapon. I swung over and made some lives over. New shiny sword acquired. Pretty much the only other thing I can do to make this run easier now is get as many Spartan cores as possible to upgrade abilities, unlock some fast travel points, and get good, because I'm going to have to fight a lot. I did some upgrading, got myself arrested, and went to prison. I've been playing for a few hours by this point, and I'm starting to realise the trick to LASO is to keep moving. Stun enemies with shot grenades, then swing in for some easy kills. Once you get the rhythm down, LASO is actually kind of easy. I'm starting to wonder why people even used a scorpion gun, to be honest. Inside the prison tower was more of the same, and chat clock is a pushover when you stun him and spam him with the sword. I took a little break at this point, and just wanted to catch the local Craig show. I was too late, sadly. The musical genius Craig had left in a hurry, leaving his stage set up, probably because he heard there's a man murdering everything in sight downstairs. I flipped over his greatest hits, and it disappeared before my eyes. No clue where it went. Maybe it's part of a longer Easter egg or something when you play on LASO, or more likely, a bug. Either way, pretty cool. Thanks 343. Also, I've just noticed this guitar. That's pretty cool. Looking for more Spartan cores, I noticed that without the HUD, the game looks really good. Makes me miss the good old days of Machinima. Coming home from school, putting on some Red vs Blue, and playing RuneScape. On an unrelated note, I'm buying GF for 1k. Hit me up. After reminiscing about how I'm getting older and I'll never be that happy again, I made it to the dig site. Last time I was here, I broke the laws of physics and made myself invincible. This time, I'm grabbing my helmet and drill and getting to work. And by work, I mean dying a lot. And slowly breaking the power generators with a couple sneaky little explodey balls. I went to turn off the laser and was interrupted by a face only a mother could love. I died. And my last checkpoint was back before I destroyed the pylons. I was so mad I gave up and went to bed. Life tip: sleep 8 hours a night to lower cholesterol, feel more energetic, and get better at Halo, because the next day, Bassus felt a little bit sleepy himself and went to bed. Good night, sweet prince. I turned off the laser, and as Molster Chief, I went underground. I got the drop shield. Not that it matters, because I didn't use it once. I fought my way through the level, rather uneventfully, planted my seed, and reached the main chamber. Since the bandana skull removes equipment cooldown, I thought I'd explore the room a little bit, and grapple to the ceiling. There's nothing up here, except an invisible wall that stops you getting higher. I'm saddened, but not surprised. I activated the terminal to continue the mission and attack the enemies that appeared. All of a sudden, it was quiet. Too quiet. I jumped around and nothing happened. No enemies spawned in, the objective didn't change. Big fat nothing. Somehow, I softlocked myself in this room. No matter what I did, I couldn't progress. I was stuck, forever in this room, alone, much like my bedroom in real life. Eventually, I just restarted the mission because there was nothing else I could do. It's annoying, but when life gives you lemons, you hold your face in your hands, get frustrated, stop playing Halo for the day, and restart the mission the next day. I went through the conservatory a second time without too much difficulty, and I can't remember why, but I got really interested by this light. It's like 2 weeks after I filmed this. I've had a bit to drink since then. I made it back to the main chamber to start the fight for a second time. The skimmers aren't too dangerous. They all carry rocket launchers or shock rifles, but they usually throw a shock grenade before they even try to shoot you, giving you plenty time to Control-Alt-Delete them from existence. The next room with 2 brute chieftains, however, put me back in my place. You ever want to be humbled? Try and beat these things on LASO without shooting. I did a rough count and died around 70 times in this room to these 2 guys. The problem is they one-shot you with melee, so if you get hit once, you have to start the fight all over again. And as you can see from my video, swiping them with the sword and spamming them with spike grenades takes forever. Never mind the fact there's 2 of them. The Covenant should have put 2 chieftains on every battlefield in the war, and Halo 1 would never have happened because everyone would be dead by the time they left the Pillar of Autumn. I started to use Evade to try and get the edge with speed, and this seemed to work, but it was still very trial and error. I managed to kill one this way, and then hid behind this wall spamming grenades to kill the other. After a while I managed to get him too, and it was onwards and upwards. I skipped some exposition, and got to a part almost as fun as fighting 2 chieftains. Fighting 2 hunters. Whoever at 343 decided putting these fights minutes after each other should be in prison. The hunters were their red upgraded form, which was bad enough, without the other skulls making them deal more damage. Like the chieftains, the melee is a one-hit kill most of the time, which sucks because the only way to deal efficient damage is to slide in behind them and smack that meaty orange goo. On the plus side, I was starting to realise Evade is actually really useful. You can spam it endlessly, you're agile enough to avoid most attacks. Ordinarily this would be great, but since just one hit can kill, it's still not a level playing field. I separated one and managed to kill it while it was showboating. which just made the other one mad. Not that I cared. I activated the elevator and entered the spire. I followed the light bulb and got into a cliche boss fight that was fairly simple once I figured out the auto lunge on the sword was dragging me wide of the arms. Attacking from behind seemed to fix this. After that, some grenade spamming did the job, and I was off to be the ante to some anti-air cannons. At some point I must have started playing the new Spider-Man game. It's pretty good. Other than that, it's the same objective 3 times, so I'll just show it once. The camps are all pretty similar, with tough enemies hanging around, but nothing I can't handle at this point. The Jackal snipers are annoying, but at least they're not Halo 2 levels of unfair. Apart from that, just picking off enemies and moving around got the job done. I tried to coil jump my way to the next AA tower, but just ended up killing myself. The real fun part was Tavares and Hyperius. The one on the chopper went down fairly easily. The one jumping around with the scrap cannon was much harder, mostly because of the brutes backing him up, killing you whenever you jump out of cover. I thought I could sneak up on him, but simply put, I was wrong. I managed to separate him from the brutes backing him up, and wailed on him with the energy sword while using evade very generously. It's a legit tactic, I swear to God. He went down, and I got to the Pelican as fast as possible to avoid something killing me and sending me back to a checkpoint from 30 minutes ago. Next up, it was everyone's favourite 4-part mission, the sequence. After clearing out the camp at the spire, I went to activate the door and noticed something underground. It lit up like a switch, and I was thoroughly confused. I thought maybe it was part of some Easter egg or an asset that was not used and so stored under the level. Nevertheless, I put a pin in this and carried on my LASO mission. The game ain't gonna beat itself. I found a ghost and made my way to the first tower, clearing a fob and getting some Spartan cores along the way. Tower 1 was really simple, not gonna lie. I upgraded my thruster to its final form and quickly realised I'm an idiot for not doing this sooner. The final upgrade of the thruster gives you active camo for 4 seconds after the boost. You can probably see where I'm going with this. I have infinite boosts, therefore I have infinite active camo. Oh my god, how did I not realise this sooner? The booster sword combo, put simply, breaks the game. You can evade infinitely, deal heavy damage and move on. Granted, it's still difficult because once you start killing enemies, they can sort of see through your camo, but nowhere nearly as accurate as without it. Because of this, the next few towers, apart from the Wraiths and Hunters, were really easy. What the f*** between Halo 5 and Halo 6 have they been feeding the Hunters? Because even with camo, it's like they track you through walls. Any encounter with these or chieftains is truly the hardest part of this game, legendary, LASO or otherwise. These moments are the only ones where I wish I had the Scorpion gun or something to take them out from afar. By the way, this was just cruel. Come on man, seriously? Eventually, I got the upper hand and activated the final tower. I had the stupid idea to upgrade the threat sensor to its final form instead of the drop wall. Usually, this will allow you to see enemies' health, which I thought would be useful against chieftains and hunters to see which ones I should go for first. Obviously, this was a dumb mistake, because the blind skull stops any HUD elements from spawning, so this was a waste. At least a drop ball would have given me temporary cover. The final upgrade for the threat sensor was literally, utterly useless. With my new key, I went back to the command spire and parked the bridge to escape a phantom. Playing with the infinite grapple hook really makes vehicles more useless than usual. Clearing the camp at the bottom was no big deal apart from an invisible elite that I had some trouble finding. Then I went inside. You remember that terminal I saw underground that I thought was some kind of Easter egg or bug? Well, I went inside the spire and realised it's literally just a button to start the next mission. And before you ask, yes, I felt pretty dumb. I thought I might have some trouble with this level, having lots of enemies packed tightly into such a small space, but as you can see from the footage, I actually found this easier during my zero-shot LASO run than just on Legendary. You can literally evade all the way through the first few chambers. This, along with the infinite sword charge, is one of the few ways LASO makes a game easier than it normally is. This got me thinking about LASO in general, and why I've never tried this much on the other Halo games. The answer is really simple. The lack of the Iron Skull. In other Halo games, there's a skull called Iron. The effect of this skull would send you back to the start of the level if you died playing solo, or if playing co-op, send you back to the previous checkpoint if any player died. Obviously, if this skull was an infinite, there's no way I'd charge head-on through hordes of enemies, else risking starting the entire level again. The lack of this skull is also absolutely why the reason me, a Halo player that can't even get Platinum online, can play the game LASO without shooting and find it just as easy as playing it on Legendary. Anyway, back to the video. These hunters were the worst in the game. The room is just so small and cluttered that evading is too difficult because you bounce into a box and get pummeled in the face. And because the room is so small, you can't separate the hunters, so you have to take both on at the same time. The best way to deal with these, I found, was to charge one as soon as you enter the room and kill it as soon as possible. When there's only one left, you can use the piston in the centre of the room as cover and circle around the other to get the hits in. When I jumped into the vent, I thought there might be some secrets up the adjacent one, so I grappled up the adjacent vent. There wasn't anything here. I was baited, and I'm not a master. I got to the classic Halo Gondola TM and thought this would be really tough. I can only melee the sentinels, and they could shoot me from across the chasm. I had another idea, and for once, this worked. I just avoided fighting entirely by using the boost every few seconds for camo, and they didn't attack. At one point, this part was so easy, I was literally eating pizza with my left hand while boosting into the corner with my right. It was all smooth sailing, and I made it across with no fight at all. I looked for the power seeds to activate the lift into the command spire. Try not to get too excited. Looking for power seeds for the 50th time is obviously the most compelling gameplay of any 2021 release, but remain calm, there's still more power seeds to come. Much like the Nexus, in the command spire, I just evaded my way through the rooms like a plastic bag, drifting through the wind, wanting to start again. I got to the second monitor boss battle, which was quite a lot harder than the first, owing to the fact there's so much less cover and it begins to disappear during the fight. Other than that, it's your standard game trope of fight the same boss again, only this time he's stronger, and using the sword to attack the arms from behind with gratuitous grenades wins the fight, just as before. The top of the spire gave me an interesting challenge. Usually, you'd use the rocket launcher or the skewer to fight off the phantoms that appear, but given my inability to figure out how firearms work, I had to do something else. I tried grappling onto the phantoms to start with, but this didn't work. In the end, I hid behind a wall and spammed plasma grenades, which seemed to take them out after 3 or 4 hits. I had no shield going into the cutscene, so Master Chief sparkled gloriously. Onto the repository now, mission 12 out of 15. The House of Reckoning and Silent Auditorium I'm feeling pretty good about, as I've done them over and over in prep for my legendary Zero Shot run. So as long as I can get through the repository and the road, things are looking pretty good. Something which I didn't expect to cause me problems was this room of sentinels. I had to kill them all to progress. The problem here being they're all floating over a bottomless pit, so I had to somehow get them with grenades, or lure them close to the light bridge and platform without dying. Both of these are as hard as they sound. That's what she said. I got to a point with one left, and no matter what, couldn't get it to come close. I played Mirror's Edge once in 2012, so I parked off the edge, killed the sentinel, and grappled back up. Smooth as butter. I've been moving very fast all game to stay alive, so I took a moment to slow down and take in the view. Remember when I said there'd be more power seeds? Well, I'm a man of my word. And this time, they're guarded by brute chieftains. One seed by one with a hammer, and the other 2 by 2 with scrap cannons. The guy with the hammer was annoying, but because there's only one, you can launch him into the air with a grenade, then juggle him with the sword until he dies. The 2 chieftains with scrap cannons are much harder because you can't take them one-on-one. And because of the cannons, they can damage you anywhere in the room rather than just up close. A mixture of grenades and energy swords seemed to be the best method to deal damage and recharge your shield. Even still, this fight was challenging, and it took a lot of tries to even kill one of them. Once I did, taking the other one out was infinitely easier. As promised, here's the power seed. And here's me putting my seed in your cradle. You're sick, you know that. After that, it's pretty much a straight shot up to the surface, and it's time to hit the road. The mission, the road that is. A canyon filled with the very best the Banished has to offer in terms of troops, turrets, and heavy vehicles. But before I went any further, I realised I've never gone left out the door, so I took a look what's over there. The answer is not much. Just 3 brutes shooting the stuff next to one of those big Atriox monuments. A nice little detour for something I haven't seen before in the game. For normal players, there's also a rocket launcher. For me, there's nothing. I'm so alone. Instead of running down the road, I did something I haven't tried before, and climbed the canyon on the south side, avoiding most of the enemies in the middle. The game suspects you might do this, and spawns in some drop pods, but luckily the combination of camo and the grapple shot got me past without much difficulty. I did this all the way to the final camp, and didn't die once, and only had to kill 1 or 2 brutes and jackals along the way. Then, it's as easy as extending the bridge and walking inside. The last time I was here, I glitched out the map and climbed straight to the boss fights. This time, I'm taking the longer, harder, that's what she said approach. Basic training was simple enough. By this point, I'm pretty adept at handling all the basic enemy types you encounter on LASO. Advanced training was more of a problem. The charging brutes made things more difficult, as often I didn't see or hear them coming. After that, the 2 hunters made things pretty tricky. but by this point I was getting good at handling these, and it didn't take long to take them both out. If you haven't seen my previous video, you might be thinking that Jaeger Radamnai would give me some trouble, but the last time I faced him, I figured out you could jump over this gap over and over and he'd follow you while attacking only sparingly. I did this again for a few minutes, swiping every time he landed, and he was down before long. This also gave me my final weapon for the game, the Blood Blade. It attacks faster, makes you move faster, and deals more damage than the normal energy sword or the duelist energy sword. For a zero-shot lasso run, it's the ultimate weapon, and makes what comes next even easier. I solved the way to cheese through the Escharum fight in my last video. This is essentially just swiping him with an energy sword from around a corner, running away, and doing this over and over again. It's really that simple. Usually, the downside of this is the fact your energy sword runs out of charge, and normal melee isn't fast enough or deals enough damage to either stagger him or for you to escape before he hits you back, which usually results in an instant death. I did this over and over, taking out the relays as they appeared, and when he pulled his hammer, did the same. Soon enough, I beat Escharum, sending him ragdolling across the room, and I didn't die once. Time for the final mission, the Silent Auditorium. You know the drill by now. I evaded, I swung the sword around. The first 2 rooms were standard stuff. Oddly enough, I found the last 2 levels of the game are much easier than the rest of it. The next room with the hunters is harder, but again, not impossible. There's a big wall to use for cover, and so it's more a matter of just taking your time, evading plenty, and getting hits in when you see the chance. I got lucky and blew the last one into the air, so I could kill it before it left its falling animation. I hope you're ready for this zero-shot lasso glitchless any % segment. Oh crap. Jokes aside, on the second time around, I evaded through the centre of the room and got across without getting hit once. Feel free to use my speedrun strats. My lawyer will be in touch regarding the licensing agreement. I met the monitor one final time, and thought this was a really big room for nothing to happen in. Maybe it had a separate use at some point that got cut. Who knows? Inadvertently, I fulfilled the criteria to unlock the door to the Mythic Skull. I went inside for old time's sake, and started my final elevator ride. The Harbinger fight I found to be much easier on Zero Shot Lasso than on normal Legendary or Legendary Zero Shot. The Infinite Sword, Camo and Evade just owns everything in its wake. The Harbinger herself is a bit tricky, since she moves so quickly, but as long as you do too, her attacks will miss you most of the time. I'll be honest, the final boss of the game may as well be the Brute Chieftain that appears in the final wave of enemies, because he's more of a challenge. But if you get him to jump off this ledge, you can attack him in the air with your sword while he harmlessly floats in the sky. After that, it's just chasing the Arbiter? After that, it's just chasing the Harbinger for a final smackdown, and there you have it. Halo Infinite Lasso is so easy, I beat it without shooting a single shot. If you have any fun challenge ideas, Halo or otherwise, drop them in the comments. I'll likely take a break from Halo for now, as Lasso really wore me out, but if a good enough idea comes along, I'm more than willing to give it a try. Much love, and thanks for watching.